now that you've had a chance to look at this example worked out, I'm going to do another video where I'm going to ask you to work through parts of this as you go. So let's take a look at another example. So I'm going to delete that one and start afresh. So let's think about a number in this 2-to-1 machine. In other words, two dots making one to the left. Let's think about a number that's quite a bit larger and start to think about what might be some shortcuts for thinking about this. Okay, so what could possibly be? I'm going to use a very large number. I'm going to use 19. Okay, that's not very large, but anyway. So 19, what would happen? Well, again, I could start off with the dots, which would be 19 dots all the way to the right, and circle groups of 2, move them to the left, and that could work. But what would be some ways we could shortcut that? So a couple things that come to mind would be to think like, well, what if there were 19 dots in here? I just think about that in my mind, and I were pairing them up. I note that 19 is an odd number, so if I were pairing them up, there should be one left over. And so maybe I think in my head, okay, there's 19, but there's going to be one left over after I finish pairing them up. Now, if I were to pair up 19s, like if I looked in my closet, maybe I have 19 shoes, that would be a problem. But if I made pairs, I would realize that 18 of the 19 would make pairs, and that would actually be 9 pairs. So if I were circling pairs, that would make 9 dots to the left. I'm kind of just working that out here. Okay, now that I would have that in my mind, if I had 9 there, that also is an odd number, so they wouldn't pair up nicely. I would have one left over, but the number is 9. But I would have a dot left over, so I know I'm going to have one there. But if I had 9, I could think about 8 being 4 pairs. So let's do that idea. I'll have one dot left over, but 8 makes 4 pairs to the left. This time I'll just go ahead and write the 4 dots instead of writing the number 4 as you saw before. And then those would both pair up nicely, and I would have 2 dots to the left, leaving 0 there. And then those 2 would pair up nicely, leaving 0 dots with 1 to the left. And my number would be 1 0 0 1 1. And then I'm going to write that 2 at the bottom. Okay, so that's another way to work it out. That may have been a little too much for you. So if you weren't comfortable with that yet, what I suggest is that you just work on this task by starting with the 19 dots, not abstracting it as I did, until you feel comfortable. So it's okay to just go back and draw these 19 dots, which would be a lot, and then circling groups of 2 as you would, and moving dots to the left. And I'm not going to continue it out that way. See what happens, and you should get to the same answer. So I hope that that is making some sense. Now, my last challenge is, what would happen if I were to think a little bit backwards about this? For example, what if I started with a number here, right? And I put it into this 2-to-1 machine, 2 going to 1 machine, and I got out this code. We're talking about this code, and the answer was 1 1 1 1. Then my question would be, where did I start? How many did I start with? And you might think about that as well. You might even put this video on pause and think about, like, where could I start with that? I know that I would end up with 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. So the challenge would be to think about working backwards or unexploding the dots, which is something that you are maybe not familiar with yet. But if you were to take a dot, this first dot all the way to the left, and to unexplode it, right, or move it back this direction, it would have been 2 dots there, right? And then each of those dots would then map backwards, that one, and also that one, and those would each make 2 dots there. And then each of these dots, and there's a total of 7 dots there, would also map backwards 1. So that one would map back here, this one would map back, this one would map back. This is a lot of drawing, right? But there's a total of 7 of these. And each one of those would make 2 dots. And you could try to figure out how many there are grand total. I believe the answer is 15, but you may want to verify that for yourself. All right, I hope this is making some sense. It is time to check your understanding with a quiz. Take your time and do your very best.